gather around, and we'd like to get our story slam started. So go ahead and get your refreshments, and we'll give you another couple of minutes, and then we'll get started. So we promised to get you out quickly, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you that don't know, I'm Terri Fortin, and this 175th Jubilee Committee asked me if I would facilitate today's Story Slam. Now, I had never heard the term before, and I'm sure it might be new to some of you. So basically what it is a story that we can connect to, that it's inspirational, and that really gives us a good feeling about a person, a church, an institution, whatever it is. So that was my understanding. So I don't know about you, but I've really enjoyed listening to Julianne Mahegan do her, I think they're like monthly little updates about the history of how this church started. And those are stories that go way back, and I've been really interested in hearing them and like that. But I've been here for about 30 years, and I know that we have stories that I haven't heard, and that maybe you all haven't heard. So the first story today was told to me by our own Jan Bacon many, many years ago. And of course, I was in tears by the end of it, and she just hugged me, and I said to her, this is why we came to this church. So it's a beautiful story, and it is a story about Carolyn and Mike and their journey in adopting their son Josh. So without further ado, Carolyn and Antoine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Being a lifelong member here at HCC, there are many precious moments that surround me. But the one dearest to my heart will take us back 30 years to start. A basket full of hopes, prayers, and dreams brought it to fruition, so it seems. Listen to the words, penned by one grandmom extraordinaire in her loving flair. This is hers from 30 years ago, her words. A story for Joseph, Christmas Eve, 1992. We have waited so long for you, little Joseph. There were times when we thought you might never find your way. But you are here, the answer to our prayers, our very own miracle and precious, precious gift. Somehow it seems so right that you should come to us at Christmas. It will be years before you will be able to understand the power of prayer and the mysterious way in which God works in people's lives. We don't always understand it ourselves, but we know it has to do with caring enough to risk being a part of another person's struggle and asking God to help in it. Perhaps all we really need to know is that God does hear our prayers and answers them according to God's plan. We will never know just how many prayers were offered for our family during the years we waited for you. There was one special friend who told us over and over, there is a child for you in God's heart, just wait. But the waiting was very, very hard. And during all that time, our church family and friends hugged us with their hearts and kept us in their prayers. Then came the unforgettable day when the phone call came to tell us that your mom and dad had been chosen to be your family. All those years of pain and disappointment and frustration were erased in a heartbeat. From that moment, things fell into place as if God's plan truly had been there all the time, just as our special friend had assured us. You see, that a very powerful and unselfish love had been around you since long before you were born. That love is so powerful and so unselfish that it has changed lives forever. In the beginning of your being, two families in Oklahoma struggled to make a decision. Your young birth mother chose to give you life because she knew that somewhere, someone was waiting to love a child like you. Her parents and friends supported her decision and surrounded her with more love and strong support. Then God gave her grace and courage to carry you under her heart, knowing all along that another mother would call you son. Someday, your mom and dad will try to tell you all about the little miracles that happened along the way in just the right order for you to become their chosen child. There was an overheard conversation by a friend who cared enough to insist that your mom follow that one more lead. There was a gift of a perfectly timed air flight that brought you two families together just hours after your birth. There was the instant love, trust, and acceptance between your birth family and your chosen one. And we know that God was there in the midst of it all, blessing the givers and the receivers, but blessing that little gift most of all. You, little Joseph, are the gift of totally unselfish love. Your mom and dad will tell you many, many times how very much your birth family loved you and how hard it was for them to say goodbye. We cried too when we met you, but ours were tears of joy. Our joy, love, and thanksgiving for you multiplies daily. We are content to hold you, feed you, or dress you, or just sit and watch you because we still are overcome with wonder that you are in our lives. But, of course, you will not always be a baby. In time, you will grow to a boy, then a man, and as you grow, we hope that all the friends and family who share the miracles of, as well as the soul-wrenching anxieties of your journey to the heart, will stay close to you. We hope that their prayers will follow wherever you go, and that you will always be blessed by their caring. Tonight is Christmas Eve. Joseph, and because of you, the wonderful stories and songs have never been so real for us. As you grow, we will bring you to other services like this. Then, when you're old enough, we will tell you about the time that we shared your birth story in church full of friends and family. We want you to grow up knowing all about how God brought you into our lives at this most special time of year. You see, that was the time that love came down at Christmas and left angels singing in our hearts. And a footnote. Eleanor Hughes is here today, and she hung the star over Joseph when he was baby Jesus 30 years ago. Thank you for listening to my story of my heart.
I mean, I've heard it before, but I should have told you to bring tissues. Okay, so that was a story that I have heard in the past, and I loved that story, and I love the way that our church helped facilitate. I don't think she really talked about the fact that it was people from this church or a person from this church that made sure that Carolyn and Mike could go to Oklahoma, and they paid their way. So that's what this church does. Okay, so our next story is a story I haven't heard. I've always wanted to hear, and it's going to be told to you by Roger Hoit. It's a story about the loving care that the men's group showed in helping Elise Scotton with a ramp and then a fund for future people who might need it. And as I'm not a man, I was not at these men's group meetings, and I've always been curious as to how this came about. And again, just knowing that it did is another reason why I'm so glad that we chose this as our church family. So Roger Hoit, come forward. Don't make me cry.
Well, that certainly is a tough act to follow. That's just a very terrific story. So I think most of you know that
the mic, please, Roger. Thanks.
Tom and Rosemary Arthur are really the main reasons why we, Nancy and I, came to this, to be members of this church, long after a search for a new church home. And I think as I sat there this morning, the welcoming congregation, the extraordinary music, talent, and the bright environment of the sanctuary really, again, just after it's been 22 years, came back to why it was that we just loved coming to this church on Sunday. I think some of you may know that the time I worked professionally, for 40 years, designing and building over 100 public elementary, middle, and high school buildings. We actually had two of the largest facilities, one in Braintree by a lake, for 2,800 students, about 350,000 square feet. And then one in Medford for 3,500 students, built in a granite quarry, which had about an 80-foot drop straight down, with just sheer sidewalls. And thank goodness for Tom trying to figure out how in the world we're going to have a building of this size stand up in an environment like that. But those are very fun things that we worked on together. And we also worked on a house for Rosemary and the family on Gristmill Lane that they lived in for many years. So one Friday evening, I had a call from Tom, and over the period of years that we've known each other, we talked about going into Boston to watch a rugby match. For some of you may know, Tom was an extraordinary athlete, played rugby for most of his life, not after he had both knees replaced, but he was, we talked about doing this for a number of years. And so I thought that this might be the time that we were going to go to Boston and watch a rugby match. But no, he had something else on his mind. He said, I need you to come with me to Hull tomorrow morning, and we need to look at sort of deteriorating situation with NS, and was going to be confined to a wheelchair. And Tom wanted to take a look and see what we might be able to do to make living in the little apartment an easier situation for him. And because of all the public work we've done architecturally and structurally, we had a pretty good notion of what was needed to make this happen. So we got there that morning and made a list of all the various things we were going to need. The parking lot, there were 2 steps trying to go from the parking lot into the apartment. And then we got in the apartment, the bathroom was a major problem. So the wheelchair wouldn't fit through the door, and there was a tub instead of any kind of roll-in shower. So Tom and I put together a list of things that we needed to accomplish, and I think it was not more than probably 2 weeks, and various members of the men's group had tasks to complete, finding a door, getting all the various hardware for making turn knobs. Are very hard for someone who's in a chair. So getting levers for all the doors, and then converting the bathroom to something that he could use and that he could basically age in place in the apartment rather than being transferred to some sort of healthcare facility. So it really was probably no more than 2 weeks. And we arrived on a Saturday, and there were, I think, 8 or 10 people there that had picked up the doors and gotten the hardware and done everything that was necessary to make this all happen. And so off comes the front door. There's a ramp that's built going up from the parking area to the front door. The new door is replaced with a 3-foot wide door so that the wheelchair could go easily through it. And then going inside, there's a bunch of the parishioners taking off all the door hardware and changing them to levers so you could actually operate the doors, open and shut the doors. When we got there, the door to the bathroom had already been taken off and made wider, put in new studs. Somebody was taking the floor out, the floor tile. the tub had been broken up into pieces and was being hauled out down the corridor to the somebody's truck who was there to take most of the debris. I think most of the basic work was done that Saturday. And then Monday, all the floor tile was taken away. The plumber arrived to replumb the entire bathroom so that you could have the shower, roll-in shower. We took the vanity out so that you could get underneath the sink in his chair. That work was done, I think, on Tuesday. Wednesday, the tile person came in and retiled the entire floor of the bathroom itself and the shower walls. And then Wednesday, the entire space was painted. And so in basically 5 days, that entire apartment was made accessible. And so that Lou could get from the car up into the hallway, down the hall. The kitchen was actually was very nicely set up already, so we didn't have to touch that. But then he could take enough room to take a right turn through the door into the bathroom, and could basically use the bathroom for all the various functions. And I think the fun thing for me was to be a part of a group of 8 or 10 people who worked diligently. Now I think this was done in 5 days. I think in COVID era we're doing right now, it would have been 2 months or 3 months if we were lucky to get this accomplished. But it all came together, and it really was, the fun part was to watch everybody with their own task to come together and make certain that everything got done in a working-like manner, and everybody had a smile on their face. It was really, if you could get the feeling of we're doing something as a congregation, as a group, to make one's life possible to stay at home instead of being taken off to a healthcare facility somewhere. And then that I think it was, maybe Roger or someone here would remember how many years, but Lou did very well for a good deal of time. And I remember, as always, we made some modifications of the church so that he could get up in the elevator and had right by the door, the back left side. We took some pews out to make it possible for him to come in. And it's every Sunday after service, people would go over to his corner and just say hello. And it's just the thought of all the hard work that everyone did to make that possible is just something I'll never forget as a part of our experience in this wonderful church, where people go out of their way to make things happen and happy for other people. So thank you, congregation, for all that you do for all of us.
Thank you, Roger.
So that's another story, and like I said, I had not heard the complete story. I knew that it happened, so I had no idea that happened in 5 days. That is amazing, and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and watch you all do that. So thank you for listening today. We're going to have another 2 stories in April, so we hope this has just really cemented for you why you come to this church in the first place. So if you're a member here, you're a participant here, you will always be put in loving care. Thank you.